Welcome to this poster presentation on alternate interim assessments for students with the most significant cognitive disabilities. I'm Cheryl Lazarus, and I'm the director of the National Center on Educational Outcomes, NCEO. My co-presenter is Diane Browder, Professor Emeritus at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. We look forward to sharing information about alternate interim assessments with you. This presentation is based on an NCEO brief. Visit the NCEO website to get additional details about the material we are presenting. Interim assessments are used for many purposes, including instructional decision-making and the measurement of progress. There also is currently interest in using them to measure learning loss. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, requires that for all statewide and district-wide administrations of an assessment, that there be an alternate assessment for students who are unable to participate in the assessment. However, most interim assessments do not have an alternate. Now, Diane is going to tell you a little about how alternate interim assessments might be envisioned.
To envision what an alternate assessment might be like, we can begin by considering what exists for the general student population. After reviewing existing interim assessments, Boyer and Landell identified 4 levels. The first is basically a miniature version of the summative assessment. The second option is to hone in on one content area. For example, just do the interim on reading. DIBELS and the DRA3 benchmark fall in this category. A third is to pinpoint even more by using some cluster of skills within this content area. At the 4th level, the focus is on a narrow set of skills. These can be quick spot checks. Let's now consider how each of these levels could be adapted for an alternate interim assessment. The simplest to imagine would be to have a miniature version of the summative alternate assessment by using a smaller set of similar items from all content areas, ELA, mathematics, science. One idea would be to give this assessment some context by anchoring all the items in a real-life activity, like going to the museum. For example, the student is presented with an exhibit with questions related to informational text provided. Then the student is given a math problem and science concept related to the exhibit. Additional exhibits might be presented to sample a few more standards. Each interim assessment during the year might have a different theme while sampling the same or similar standards.
Details about the other 3 existing interim assessments formats and how they might be adapted are in the NCEO brief on alternate interim assessments. Diane will now discuss the steps states and districts might take to develop an alternate interim assessment.
To wrap up, let's review the steps states and districts can take to build an interim alternate assessment based on academic achievement standards. First, clarify the purpose and use for the interim. As noted in our last format example, the assessment needs to be designed to meet its intended use. It might be helpful to consider how the interim is used generally in the state or school district. What kind of alternate would be needed to meet this same purpose? Second, a stakeholder group is needed to review this proposed use and create a purpose statement. Building on this, the group can draft the rationale and theory of action for how the assessment will be administered and used. They can note the assumptions that must hold for the assessment to have its intended impact and suggest a format. Third, with these stakeholder guidelines, it is now possible to work with the assessment developer to create the blueprint for the assessment, including purpose, desired claims, and format. Fourth, now the assessment moves into the test development stage, which includes not only the specifications and test itself, but a validity agenda. The test should have an administration and technical manual and information on limitations of use. Well, thank you for participating in this presentation on alternate interim assessments.